Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Hey guys, today's date, May the 22nd, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try and make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, to let you know that we do try to pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means that we only use the most reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, whatever crazy Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson thing is now, whether it's extreme left or extreme right, we simply don't do it. We give you the facts, nothing but the facts. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly, especially on this show. And especially if there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So how do we actually start this week? Well, we can only start this week with, unfortunately, the expired Dorito chip known as Trump, who's been in the news for a number of things. But in this case, he's actually known for this. He has said that he changed his mind about contraception. He says now that he does not support restricting birth control after saying that he was looking at contraception. Looking at contraception. Kind of interesting for a man that paid money to have sex with a porn star while his wife is pregnant and is now looking at contraception. Cue the irony. He has sat there and said, quote unquote, I have never and will never advocate imposing restrictions on birth control or other contraceptives, as he said on Truth Social. I do not support a ban on birth control, and neither will the Republican Party. Now, keep in mind, this is after the backlash that, of course, Trump had said earlier that he left it up to states, right? He left it up to the states for the states to figure out as far as how they handle birth control and abortion. As we all know, many states, conservative-led states, have actually put in trigger laws that were put in place after the fall of Roe versus Wade to trigger the bans on abortions, or if you're in Florida, less than 6 weeks now, in case you haven't been keeping up count. Is it messed up? Absolutely. At the same time, Trump is realizing, as I've sat there and said before, the biggest group of voters outside of minorities in this upcoming election are women. Women have been dealt a bad hand this entire year, really. This year and last year, to be quite honest, that you are the most ticked off group of voters out there. I mean, you can't even make decisions on your body without having a group of old white men tell you what to do. There's a kicker out there, which we'll get to very, very later in the show, that believes that, you'll be happier at home than you'll be actually in your profession because his religion says so, and that he believes his religion is under attack. But again, that's a whole other story. But ladies who are now voters and women who are about to be eligible voters, if I were y'all, it's like, who would be considered to be voting Republican at this point when this party has already shown you that they do not care about you? At the same time, you have states, much like Trump is saying, leave it up to states about abortion. Here's what Louisiana is doing. Louisiana is putting birth control pills in the same area as crack cocaine. You can't make this up.
Last couple of minutes, we saw the Louisiana House passing a bill that could make that state the first in the country to criminalize abortion pills by classifying them in the same category as substances like cocaine and heroin. Want to show you a live look here. This is the chamber as we speak. They've moved on at this point to other business. Again, they just voted in the last couple of minutes. Now, it's still got to go through the state Senate, I believe. But if this becomes law, if the governor signs it, anybody using certain abortion pills without a valid prescription could face jail time. Remember, abortion is already illegal in most cases in Louisiana, with lawmakers there actually just recently rejecting these proposed exceptions for rape and incest. Doctors in the state signing an open letter against this bill. Marissa Parra is in Baton Rouge. Okay, so bring us up to speed. Where does this bill stand and what's next?
Hey, Hallie. So you were correct. So we heard some back and forth, and it is officially passed in the House, but it is not going to the governor's desk quite yet. It has to go back to the Senate. And we have already seen this has been pretty unpredictable in terms of timing. We thought that what we saw today, we would see yesterday. So this is politics. It doesn't always move in the timeline you think it's going to. And so we will see what happens when it goes back to the Senate. But I'll tell you, it is expected to pass. We saw it passed pretty overwhelmingly in the House, and we expected to do so in the Senate. And we also know the governor, he is a Republican. He has been very vocal against abortion rights, and there is no reason to expect he will not sign it once it does get to his desk. But I want to take you to that moment when we saw just now from inside the House just moments ago.
64 yeas, 29 nays, and the bill is finally passed.
So 64 yeas, 29 yeas, like we said, it passed overwhelmingly in the House. And I want to take you to what we heard in our interview with State Senator Thomas Presley. This is the senator who authored this bill, and I will explain his original intentions when he authored it on the other side of it. But first, take a listen.
For me, that was unacceptable. I felt like it was not enough. It did not fit the crime of trying to kill his unborn baby and doing so against his wife's knowledge, which also caused significant health problems for my sister.
Okay, so let me explain what you just heard. State Senator Thomas Presley's sister, he says his sister was given abortion drugs without her knowledge, without her consent when she was pregnant. And she ended up giving birth early to a child that had health complications, putting her health at risk, and her child's health at risk. This happened in a different state, and it was her ex-husband who did it, Hallie. And so he faced 180 days in prison and jail as a result. And so State Senator Thomas Presley said that that was simply not enough. That was what you heard him say just now. So he wanted to see harsher penalties for people who tried to do the same thing that his sister's ex-husband did. And so now, if this continues to move forward, Hallie, we would see harsher punishments because, like we just talked about, this would be classified as a controlled dangerous substance. It would be Schedule 4, and possession would be something that you could face prison time for. So specifically looking at this bill was originally authored to prevent coerced forced abortions, Hallie. But of course, we're hearing a lot of fallout and criticism from people on, who are for abortion rights and also physicians and doctors around the state of Louisiana.
Okay, let's think about this for a second, because the guy that we were talking to previously, right, was saying that, oh, well, this happened in another state, that your sister pills without her knowledge by her ex-husband, and because of that, you decided that because it happened in another state in which the guy was tried and sent to prison for 180 days, that you, being a representative of the House Chamber of Louisiana, decided to take it upon yourself and say, that's not enough. We need to penalize those who have abortion pills. Let's think about this for a second. They are putting, if Louisiana goes through with this, and it looks like it may, let's think about this for a second, guys. They are talking about the fact that if you have abortion pills, it's being put in the same lane as cocaine. Don't get me wrong. Cocaine is highly illegal, as it should be. Crack cocaine is legal, as it should be. But the fact that they're putting abortion pills, which again, if used regularly, really are there for women as a choice for them to take because they do not want to remain pregnant or want to be pregnant or want to bring a child in this world, which is ultimately their choice. But those women now, if they have the abortion pill, can now be seen no different than your everyday drug dealer. What sense does that make? Except for the pro-life people. Well, we have to speak out for the unborn children. Aha! The pro-life people, you guys never cease to amaze me when you show up. You literally show up when the child is unborn. You disappear when the child is born, but you show up for the unborn children in droves. Because who's going to speak for this little child? I don't know, maybe the mother that's actually incubating the child, and maybe she's trying to do the right thing, because let's be honest, not everybody's fit to be parents. Not everybody wants to be parents. And I've always said this best on the show. We'll keep repeating on the show. How the Frack We Got Here is all for pro-choice. Because here's the thing about pro-life people: if you don't want to abort your children, completely fine. You believe in having you believe in having children. You believe in protecting the unborn babies. Let them be your own and your own alone. It does not help that someone who is different than you, who again, in my opinion, does a responsible thing and decides they're going to terminate the pregnancy, and it bothers you. Mind your own mother business. To me. But this is the problem with Trump saying that abortions should be handled by states. If you have a state like Louisiana that's going to put in place a law that says you cannot have abortion pills, they will be treated just like crack cocaine. What does that say to the women of that state? That 64 people in the House in the chamber, 64 people voted yes, 29 people voted no. And I guarantee those 64 people were all men. I find it very hard pressed because get me wrong, there are some women out there that are pro-life, which honestly blows my mind. You're a woman and you're pro-life. Why? I mean, if you want to be pro-life, cool, be pro-life for yourself. But I cannot understand how you could have the audacity to speak for other people of your gender. That's the thing I don't get. But I also don't get why in the world do you want that law to be put in place? Because you're basically telling women in Louisiana, you get pregnant, you having the baby. It's forced. It is forced. It is the Handmaid's Tale meets Stepford Wives in Louisiana. And honestly, again, a conservative state. Only a conservative legislation will come up with this by a twisted representative who is trying to get justice, because they're trying to say, oh, it's just for if you were given abortion pills without your consent. No, not how that law reads. That law reads possession. If you are in possession of it, you can be tried. And again, this all stems from the fact of Trump pretty much saying, oh, well, I mean, it should be left up. I mean, abortion law should be left up to states' rights, but you don't want to put a ban on contraception. Sounds like you're playing that campaign boat. You're playing that campaign boat banjo, Trump, because, a lot of people don't like the fact of restrictions. But I digress. Moving right along, though, we are going to stick to Trump because, again, Biden and Trump are setting up for their presidential debate. And I cannot say it's enough. Before I get to this issue of what the Trump campaign did, another Nazi reference, by the way, but the debate always bothers me. And again, this is why people don't, and again, this is just me, this is why people don't tune into presidential debates. Presidential debates are really held by the political parties themselves, by their rules, their standards. The questions are already pre-selected. And on top of that, you have the over-talking. It's really at this point, it might as well just be in a squared circle and might as well just be wrestling at this point. That's how scripted it is. You want to make people pay attention to the presidential debate. It's very simple. One, take it out the hands of political parties. All presidential debates should be handled by an independent, non-biased third party. The questions are from your normal, everyday American citizens that the candidates must answer. Every question, each candidate gets to get an answer, gets to do an answer and a rebuttal. At the same time, the moderator has mic control. What I mean by that is, you want to stop the over-talking? Cut somebody's mic. That's it. You want to make answers. Well, how's that fair to the candidates? They won't know the questions. Well, if you're going to be the president of the United States, you better have a vast answer for a myriad of questions and issues that the American people who you want their votes to be elected to be president, you do have to answer. So again, what's wrong with that format? Absolutely nothing. Because again, the format that we're seeing right now between the DNC and the RNC is a effing joke. It really, truly is. I mean, this is the reason why I say for a lot of people, they are honestly going to be fed up about it. But again, it's Trump. Trump tried to debate once with Hillary Clinton. Hillary was the Nostradamus. She predicted everything Trump would say and do, and Trump just sat there and went, yeah, MAGA, America. and people ate it up. What's the difference between him and Joe? No difference. Trump is going to claim the world is out to get him. Trump is going to claim that these trials are a witch hunt. Trump is going to claim that America did better under him than any other president. He did more for black people than any other president, and every other line of BS he's going to spew. This is why I say not just as presidential debates should be changed differently. Every debate going forward should follow that format. But again, I digress. Anyway, Trump's Truth Social. This is what happens when you have people who really run your campaign and decided that, hey, what would happen if Trump becomes president? We'll install a Reich. Yes, a Reich.
Social account on Monday shared a video about how they seem to think the United States will change if Trump is elected president again. There's, of course, nothing abnormal there necessarily. Political candidates talk about their visions for the country all the time. They're running for office. That's the point. What is not normal is that this video referenced a quote unquote unified Reich. Reich is a German word that basically means empire, but it, of course, evokes the Third Reich, used to refer to Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. We're going to show you that video. It's going to sound a little strange. We edited it to freeze and zoom in on the terms so that you can easily spot it. So you'll hear this video start, and then when the sound stops, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. Watch this.
What happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America?
So there you go. It's pushing in on, it says there, you can see the phrase, quote, industrial strength significantly increased and driven by the creation of a unified Reich. So the Trump campaign spokesman, Carolyn Levitt, telling CNN, the video was not created by the campaign and was reposted by a staffer who didn't see the word. Kate Bedingfield, that's a way to put it. They say that this was posted while Trump was in court yesterday. The Biden campaign said this, quote, Donald Trump is not playing games. He is telling America exactly what he intends to do if he regains power, rule as a dictator over a unified Reich. Again, this is something that they reposted. The AP says at least one of the headlines flashing appears to be text copied verbatim from a Wikipedia entry on World War I. Quote, German industrial strength and production had significantly increased after 1871, driven by the creation of a unified Reich. But this language is quite specific.
Yeah, it's very specific. But I love the fact that how they try to sit there and say, oh, but it was a staffer that really didn't pay attention, and it posted under Donald Trump's account on Truth Social, and that's not what he means. Sure, I mean, it's not like Donald Trump hasn't had a love of dictators. I mean, the fact that he loved the president. He loved the president of China. He loved the president. He loved North Korea. He loved Kim Jong-il. He wrote a love letter to Kim Jong-il. He loves the fact of dictators. Dictators to him are guys with total power and unquestionable authority, and in some cases, fear over their citizens. Trump doesn't love that idea. I mean, for the longest time, him and Putin were the best of friends. Think about that for a second. That the fact that he loves dictators, the fact that, yes, he has literally done the playbook from a certain Nazi that I'm trying not to name, but it's not like he's not following his playbook. Play on the hatred of those that feel oppressed, and you will have an army. Trump has done that with his flock of idiots. At the same time, why is it surprising that, one of his staffers says, oh, we're just going to put that out there because it sounds cool without double checking? This entire administration is ran by a bunch of literally inadequate, unqualified idiots who are basic stooges to Trump, which he loves because the one thing Trump loves above all else is adoration and loyalty and allegiances. He loves that because if you don't believe me, what he did to Michael Cohen, what his attorneys did to Michael Cohen in his current trial right now says a lot about those that burned against him. But the fact that, that doesn't mean anything. Trump has said many times, and I always say, go back to the Time magazine interview with Trump. where he sat there and said, "This is all the things that I would do if I was installed as president. I would be a dictator for a day." What presidential candidate do you know is going to either joke or even in the realm of a joke, going to sit there and say, above all else, I'll be a dictator for a day. I'll dismantle the Department of Education. I'll dismantle the FBI. I will literally get rid of all the illegal immigrants by force or by National Guard if I have to. This guy has a laundry list of things he would do that any sane person would be like, hell no, you are never going to be president. Not because of the fact that you're trying to avoid prison, but the fact that what you're doing is literally a terrorist list on how to deconstruct a nation. But hey, again, tell that to his followers, and all you hear is mega America. You can't convince idiots. But speaking of idiots, unfortunately, as Trump is about to get the Republican nomination, the race for who's going to be his VP is still going strong. And you can tell who wants to be Trump's VP so bad. Tim Scott's out there with his starting five, again, with his starting five of black conservatives who are doing nothing more to show themselves like, hey, we'll be your friend. We'll be your black friend, Mr. Trump. Even Marco Rubio, who again, and I've said this once and I'll say this again, every Republican that is literally that has their hand in the VP race has suddenly changed their answer on saying if the election is called down the middle and it's fair, regardless of who wins, will you concede to it? And again, the tap dancing for the VP still continues because that's exactly what Rubio did.
Election results of 2024, no matter what happens, Senator.
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one. It's Hillary Clinton.
No Democrat has refused to concede. Hillary Clinton conceded. Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was illegitimate. Kamala Harris agreed.
Senator,
we have Democrats now.
Senator, she conceded the election. She said that Trump was illegitimate. She said that the election had been stolen. Kamala Harris agreed. By the way, there are Democrats serving in Congress today who in 2004 voted not to certify the Ohio electors because they said those machines had been tampered with. And you have Democrats now saying they won't certify 2024 because Trump is an insurrectionist and ineligible to hold office. So you need to ask them. I think have you ever asked the Democrat this question on your show? I bet you've never asked.
All I can say is, well, he's kind of full of shit. And I say that because, number one, Democrats have not refuted every election since 2001. Since 2001 was when Bush 2.0 got elected. And there was that little issue of votes in Florida, which again did go through the court of law and yet was ruled in Republicans' favor. He forgot to mention that. Also, following Bush, there was Obama, which, again, nobody questioned, although it was kind of Republicans that questioned his birth. It was Republicans that questioned his qualifications. It was Republicans sitting there saying people are only voting for him because he's black, even though he won both his presidential races twice. Oh, and let's not forget Trump. Trump had some questionableness during the election, even to the point to where there was an investigation on whether or not Russia did interfere. That was brought up by Democrats, and also that was seen as that Trump more than not knew exactly what was going on at that special investigation report. But then again, Trump's AG at the time, Mr. William, decided to kill it. So again, Rubio's whole thing of Democrats have been refuting every election since 2001, kind of bullshit. At the same time, no, well, all Democrats are sitting there saying they're going to be refuting this year's election because Trump's an insurrectionist. Well, half truth. Trump is an insurrectionist, but no Democrat has sat there and said they are not going to ratify the results or go against them, whether or not who wins. Again, a lie. But again, this comes from a guy who 2 months ago sat there and said he would accept the election as it is. He would accept the election as it is, But I guess now because he's part of the Trump VP sweepstakes, I have to make myself as aligned to Trump as humanly possible, because I want him to know I could be his VP, I could be his mouthpiece, I could do what America's creepiest Christian Mike Pence couldn't do. It's amazing to me that this is what you have on the Republican side. Because let's be honest, old girl, I keep forgetting her name to save my life right now, who actually ran against Trump, has yet to throw her support behind it, which again tells you everything you want to know. That you have Tim Scott, Marco Rubio, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, all of them now are just waiting to see who's going to kiss the ring. And again, none of them qualify to be vice president next to an insurrectionist. But hey, keep denying the fact that there was issues with the election, even though the election we just had was the most safest election on record, and the only voter fraud that was found was for Republican votes. But they don't like to repeat that. They don't like to repeat that part of history. They're trying to wipe it out as it is. Move right along, guys. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, has issued an arrest warrant for Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu and his allies. And for some odd reason, the U.S. is offended.
Prosecutors at the International Criminal Court announced that they were seeking arrest warrants for top Israeli and Hamas officials for war crimes against humanity. It is an issue that has divided the West, with some European countries, including France and Germany, expressing support for the ICC and its independence. But here in Washington, the Biden administration continues to make clear it opposes the ICC's latest actions.
Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that.
The extremely wrong-headed decision by the ICC prosecutor yesterday, the shameful equivalence implied between Hamas and the leadership of Israel. We'll be happy to work with Congress, with this committee, on an appropriate response.
Joining me now is Sahil Kapoor on Capitol Hill. We saw Secretary Blinken there. He was testifying today, and he signaled the administration may take some action against the ICC. What would that look like?
Yeah, that's right, Ryan. This was a revealing moment where the ICC's action actually unified the Biden administration and Democrats with Republicans on this issue as they had been moving further and further apart, unified them in condemnation. You just played Blinken over there calling this an extremely wrong-headed decision. He described the shameful equivalence, in his words, between Hamas and the government of Israel. He said this sets back the cause of a ceasefire in Gaza, and it makes it harder to get a hostage release deal. Now, Blinken told the ranking member of this committee in his testimony, Jim Risch, that he could support legislative action against the ICC. He said, quote, "We want to work with you on a bipartisan basis to find an appropriate response," unquote. But Secretary Blinken, ever the diplomat, said the devil's in the details, and he would need to see a proposal before he commits to it. His message to the committee was essentially, show us what you got, we'll take it from there, but we agree on the broader point.
Of course, Sahil, the U.S. policy on Israel is really a dividing line. It's dividing the country on both sides of the aisle. Was the secretary able to say anything to minimize some of those criticisms?
Yes, somewhat, Ryan. Interestingly, in that exchange with Jim Risch, Risch seemed to like the fact that he talked about that shameful equivalence. He said that coinage was, quote, "a good starting point for all of us." That is Risch talking to Blinken, and said he also wants to work with him. Now, of course, there are Republicans who are not satisfied with Blinken or the administration. That includes conservative Senator Ted Cruz, who had a fiery exchange with Secretary Blinken, demanding to know that the Biden administration was withholding any intel about Hamas from Israel, to which Blinken categorically insisted, no, it is not, and that reports to the contrary, in Blinken's words, were false. Their Speaker, Mike Johnson, said if the administration doesn't show leadership, Congress will consider any and all options, including sanctions, to punish the ICC and ensure that its leadership faces consequences if they proceed. And then, of course, on the progressive side, the protests continue. Secretary Blinken faced yet another protest in that room from people calling him war criminal and complicit in genocide. Finally, progressive Senator Bernie Sanders actually said the ICC is right, that the arrest warrants may never materialize, but international law must be abided by. Ryan?
Okay.
So yes, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, has actually in the process of issuing an arrest warrant for Netanyahu and allies For some odd reason, the U.S. is annoyed with the ICC. I don't understand how, because it was Israel that did initiate the fight against Hamas. It was Israel that is actually using their IDF forces to go against the public as well as the press there. It was the IDF that is actually going against Doctors Without Borders and the Earth Earth humanitarian efforts there to get food and water to those in Gaza. It is also Netanyahu that wants to invade other areas because, again, Israel is somehow oppressed. And yet the U.S. along with the Secretary of State is somehow scratching their heads over this. I'm baffled because, again, what is this whole thing about U.S. taking Israel? I mean, even Biden had already said, "I am calling for a ceasefire." President Biden, you can call for a ceasefire anytime you want to. We are kind of footing Israel's bill in the Middle East. If you pull funding, if you pull support, if you pull resources from Israel in the Middle East, Israel will fold. Versus sitting there saying, I am forcing Netanyahu to call a ceasefire while we're still financially and using resources, including soldier support to Israel. Help that make sense, because on one side I can see why the ICC is right. On the other side, I'm confused how we're still somehow supporting Israel. Oh, well, you're a Zionist or you're pro-Palestinian. No, I am trying to figure out why in the blue hell are we supporting Israel when Israel's not the one being oppressed? We call for, we want a ceasefire so bad, and yet we also have the ability to cause or force Israel to do a ceasefire. And yet Biden has pulled the trigger. I ask again, what kind of dirt does Israel have on the U.S. to where the U.S. proudly gives money and resources with no problem? And again, for all those that are wondering why Netanyahu deserves this warrant, because again, he's not the only one. Back then, Bush 2.0, he also was dubbed a war criminal, and the ICC court did issue a warrant for him, although the warrant itself was never enforced because, let's be honest, it's seen more as a show of force than anything else. So again, for all those that are wondering why Netanyahu is, being given this righteous honor of an arrest warrant, Jake Tapper asked him a simple question, and he dodged and danced right past it.
Because what Hamas did on October 7th, just to make this clear, what Hamas did is abhorrent, as is the refusal to return the hostages. Abhorrent. But whether or not it was Israel's intent, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, including countless children, have been killed and maimed by the IDF in your war against Hamas. Is there anything you and the IDF could have done any differently to avoid all the loss of innocent lives in Gaza?
First of all, every civilian casualty is a tragedy. Every child lost, or every woman lost, or every innocent person lost is a tragedy. But for Hamas, it's a strategy. So while we go out of our way to get them out of harm's way, Hamas goes out of its way to keep them in harm's way, shooting at them if they try to leave the battle zones. But many have left. Thankfully, I can say that.
Yeah, that's all he said. He literally sat there and said, could Israel and the IDF forces could have done anything different to prevent innocent deaths? Keep in mind, the IDF has bombed humanitarian efforts and claimed it was an accident. The IDF has detained press journalists out there because they were showing videos of what the IDF were doing to there. Again, Netanyahu had a perfect time to sit there and say, well, you know what? That's not, it's not supposed to happen. Unfortunately, it's an act of war. He blames Hamas. And yet people wonder, and yet you have Blinken, who also should be considered a war criminal for various obvious reasons. I'm surprised that, I hate to say it, that Biden being in cahoots with Netanyahu, that he also hasn't had an arrest warrant put out for him. But right now, it's just the Israel Prime Minister welfare queen that is loving the fact that the U.S. is still backing him for reasons beyond my comprehension. But speaking of things beyond my comprehension, President Biden did speak at the Morehouse graduation, giving the commencement speech. Now, Mr. President, I have sat there and said for the last year and a half, as you are coming up on your nomination, that President Biden is going to have a hard time getting black voters, specifically black men to vote for him, considering the fact that a lot hasn't been done for black men during his administration. I mean, we were supposed to have the George Floyd Police Reform Bill. That was killed. We were supposed to have the Voting Rights Act. That was killed. We were supposed to have Build Back America. That was killed, then diluted, then remixed, and then parts of it got passed. But when it comes to the black man in America, we're only needed during wartime, sports, and voting. So with that also being said, President Biden had a unique chance at Morehouse to really speak on that and to really encourage those. And, well, he did this.
Humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's why I've called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting. Bring the hostages home. And I've been working on a deal as we speak, working around the clock to lead an international effort to get more aid into Gaza, rebuild Gaza. I'm also working around the clock for more than just one ceasefire. I'm working to bring the region together, working to build a lasting, durable peace. Because the question is, and you see what's going on in Israel today, what after? What after Hamas? What happens then? What happens in Gaza? What rights do the Palestinian people have? I'm working to make sure we finally get a two-state solution, the only solution, for two people who live in peace, security, and dignity. This is one of the hardest, most complicated problems in the world, and there's nothing easy about it. I know it angers and frustrates many of you, including my family. But most of all, I know it breaks your heart. It breaks mine as well. Leadership is about fighting through the most intractable problems. It's about challenging anger, frustration, and heartbreak to find a solution. It's about doing what you believe is right, even when it's hard and lonely.
Okay, so that was an excerpt. It was really a 30-minute longer speech. But again, you address what's happening in the Middle East and saying that you're doing all these things. At the same time, there were protests there were protests by black men at Morehouse. Their backs turned away from the president just because he didn't really say anything that really would get, hopefully your chosen voter demographics attention. You talked, and again, I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, but black men in this day and age, and of course I can't speak for all black men, are not concerned about what is happening literally overseas. Some black men are dealing with, what problems are going today as far as wage income, housing, credit, financials, education, getting, taking care of your children, things of that nature. Things that black men are considered while they're still being used as targets by law enforcement and pretty much not being denied justice, but yet time is given to them like dinner, like McDonald's at a Trump residence. And again, Biden had a wonderful moment to sit there and really speak on that and really try to gain black men to get black men to look at him as potential voting. And I'm sorry, President Biden failed. But again, this doesn't mean that black people are going to turn to Trump. I mean, you might have a few people out there that are trying to go viral, trying to say, we go black people for Trump, or black women for Trump, or thugs for Trump. They're out there just trying to get viral and trying to get endorsements and money. Because again, I have already said many a times, the conservative side of the world is lucrative, and the Candace Owens, the Stacey Dashes, the Tim Scotts, I can keep going down the list of potential of black people that used to be on Fox News and at the Republican convention who made bank spewing lies that they don't even believe themselves. At the same time, they come and they go. But Biden at Morehouse could have literally done something great and actually curve some attention and actually have black men kind of look in his direction to see, because right now it's almost as if President Biden is ignoring a potential voter base. Because again, black men do vote, and we should be voting more. Because don't believe me, Georgia's a pretty good representative. The last election, this last special election in Georgia was a pretty good example of that. But I want to move on again because I know we talked about this last week about a certain NFL kicker who decided that he was going to express himself in his religion. And I said it best about Mr. I call him, and it's not Burkett, but it's really everybody's been calling him, butt licker and everything else. A man that sat there and told a Catholic college that the graduating class, specifically the women, are their greatest joys to look forward, not excelling in the profession that they studied hard and paid money for, but to be great homemakers and brood mares, in allowing them to sell the home for their men to come to and be the men. Because as Mr. Buttlicker did say in his speech, I am so glad my wife was the homemaker that allowed me to be the man I am today by kicking a football and being the least valuable player on a football team. Anyway, I said that was crazy. I said that, that did alarm a lot of women as you saw multiple TikTok social media out there. However, Fox News, I don't know if it's Fox News. Fox News is not a news station. Fox News has been sued for this, and they're continually being sued because Fox News is not a news station. They're not America's #1 source. They're not reliable and trustworthy. What they are is basically eye candy for old white dudes to look at with the TV on mute. That being said, they did actually cover Mr. Buttlick's speech, and I shouldn't be surprised from the nation that pretty much is state's news, or I should say state propaganda, because again, I understand what I'm about to play. It's Fox News. Just bear with me. But you'll see why I'm pointing this out.
We begin with NFL kicker Harrison Butker's commencement address that's ignited a national debate about religious beliefs and free speech. Harrison Butker is a 3-time Super Bowl champion kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's now being attacked for his commencement speech at a small private Catholic college in Kansas. His now viral address promoted his faith, his pro-life stance, and his conservative views on marriage. Watch.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. I am certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people like those here at Benedictine wouldn't be met with anger, but instead met with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify him. To the gentleman here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy.
Kaylee, what do you make of that?
You know, a lot has been made of his comments about women, which I found to be absolutely spot on. I'm a working mom. I've had a job at the height of politics. I have a job now at the height of television. That's not my best job in life. My best job in life is being a mother, is the things I do at home. Beautiful words about his wife. But while a lot has been made of those comments, people ignore the other 19 minutes of the speech. I listened to all 20 minutes on my way in, and I was blown away. This was the best graduation speech that I have ever heard in my entire life. He talks a lot about Christianity. He says the world wants you to hide this away. The world wants Christians to be harmless. But he said, we are in mission territory in a post-God world. Stop and think about that. So many of the problems that we talk about here on the couch, the crime out on the streets, the kids that, abortion till birth, which we talk about in some states, these stem from a culture that doesn't respect life, that doesn't respect faith. We live in a post-God world, and what he said is truth. And you know what? The NFL, for them to come out, their senior vice president and chief diversity and inclusion officer comes out and says he gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL. His views are the vast majority of those who watch the NFL, good, hardworking Americans, many of whom go to church, many of whom are faith-filled. How dare you say that? But here's the thing.
You can only, I gotta stop it right there. You can only listen to so much Fox News before you're ready to turn the channel. But this is what Fox News does, ladies and gentlemen. They sat there, and again, this is a person who decided to sit there and say, well, don't be part of the world. And people are going, well, this was at a Catholic school. This was at a Catholic college. He's a Catholic. He was just spouting his views. Okay. Well, here's the problem that people like that and people at Fox News seem to forget. You are at a commencement speech if you're asked to go there. The whole idea of a college commencement speech is to give some words of wisdom, some uplifting words, some encouragement to the next generation out there that's about to enter the workforce with degrees that they've earned through blood, sweat, and tears and crap loads of money. You're supposed to give encouragement. I mean, that's what it should be. But instead, he decided to lean on his faith. And again, if you're going to give a personalized view of your faith, then at the same time, you're going to sit there and tell the women of that graduating class that the best thing you can do outside of being a graduate is to be a homemaker. And then the backlash. Oh, well, I just don't get it. I mean, being a homemaker just means that, you'll be a better man. Well, honestly, Mr. Buttlicker, if you are literally praising your wife that much, then your wife should be the one giving the speech and not you. All you do is kick a football every 18 games, sometimes Super Bowl. That's your contribution to the world. And yet you're going to stand and say, because of this woman, I am the man I am today. Well, it sounds like, sir, you need to be letting her talk and you need to actually sit down. On top of that, Fox News, we're not surprised. Fox News gets there and say, well, I just think that he's being prosecuted because of faith. We're in a post-God world. And that's all. And that's what kills about conservatives. Faith, family, and guns, all in that order. Oh, well, he's being prosecuted because of his faith and religion. No, you're literally being roasted because you decided that you don't see women as nothing more than homemakers and baby incubators. That's what you're saying. But you didn't say it just to the graduating class at Benedict. You let your words pretty much be what you believe what women should be. Now, don't get me wrong. If there are women out there that believe that, hey, I should be a homemaker, nobody's going to stop you. At the same time, that's not for all women, especially women that decided that to go to college to get degrees, to get PhDs, to get things that basically you're going to need to get to the positions in life where you want to be. And a homemaker may not be it. But also, let me say this very quickly: it's only Christians and pseudo-Christians out there. And I'm not talking about all Christians, but I'm talking about the ones that always sit there and say their faith is persecuted. Oh, I can't be a Christian in this day and age. I can't praise my God in this day and age. What kills me about you pseudo-Christians is that y'all are the same ones that believe your religious views are always under attack. keep forgetting that in the world of public speech, that yes, you can say whatever that you want to say, but you are not absolved from the actions of what happens next. For example, nobody cares about the fact that you're Christian, but the fact that you have to put that in everything that you say and everything that you do, like it's a look at me title, that gets annoying. But at the same time, you'll sit there and it's the same pseudo Christians that'll sit there and say that drag queens reading to kids is basically our way of indoctrinating children. What have churches been doing for the last 400 years? I'm just saying. But at the same time, I'm sorry, pseudo Christians, your religion is not under attack. It's the fact that you have an opinion, people don't agree with your opinion, and you're crying about it. No, they may disagree. They may disagree with your way of life, but they're certainly not stopping you from living it. But at the same time, when you're a kicker from a football team that's been invited to give a commencement speech, stick to the easy stuff. Uplift, encourage, and tell them to reach for the stars. Not sit there and go back to the 1950s and tell women where you think they should belong. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you're at a Kansas City Chiefs game, you won't get heckled. But I can't say I don't feel bad for you. But then again, it's Fox News. They'll probably invite him there as a guest speaker. I'm just saying. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover this story as well because child labor is becoming a thing in these states, and I will not stop talking about it. Again, especially at the Marjack Poultry in Mississippi, where 4 minors were working at a poultry plant by the same firm just months ago, was responsible for a 16-year-old that was killed because of this mishandling of his machine. Marjack Poultry is literally in Mississippi and Jasper, Alabama. They had workers there that basically were younger than 17. Although Marjack swears that the identification and papers they got on these kids show that they were older than 18, and also said that I wish I could make this up, that some of the jobs they were doing were not prohibited by federal regulations. This is the part that I keep talking about, that when it comes to labor force, that they're not going to raise the minimum wage, although they should. They're not going to really look at a universal income as they should, because what they're doing, what these conservative states are doing, because again, there's plenty of jobs out there, but those jobs are not able to support anybody trying to survive. So what are these states doing? They're loosening up child labor laws. Sarah Huckabee in Arkansas is doing the same thing with child labor laws, allowing 16-year-olds to work 40-hour weeks. We've seen it here in Tennessee, in Alabama, Mississippi. They are loosening child labor laws, and that's scary because those child labor laws were put in place to ensure that our children were going to school. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with working part-time, but at the same time, a child's initial path, hopefully, is to go to school, to graduate, and then from there, they choose to work longer hours than they can. But a child who is still in rudimentary, elementary school, or high school should not be working a 40-hour week. That's just that simple. And these companies really should be getting fined for that and not just a slap on the wrist. But speaking of things that make me worry, because again, guys, I know we're near the end of the month of May. A lot of schools are letting out. Summer vacation is about to happen for a lot of kids, and that's nice. But here's the problem with the school year that's moving up forward. That, again, education is always on the chopping block. Funds may get cut. Teachers may move on to higher positions. But here's what some states are doing with school systems that are simply not working out. They're deciding to take them over. And again, that's a scary thought concerning the fact that a lot of these school systems don't need to be taken over. If anything, the people that believe they need to take them over should be getting fired.
Many states are adopting a drastic approach, taking them over. They're stepping in with new policies and new leadership, hoping they can turn things around. But some teachers say they don't believe the approach is always best for their students. ABC's M. Wynn traveled to Houston, where the district is finishing its first full school year under state control. But the fallout has already begun.
Rummaging through boxes and their faces lighting up. Free books at their fingertips.
This is my guy. He's my reader.
I got Albert Einstein because I want to become a scientist when I grow up.
This is Faith Reese Boston of Lockhart Elementary, missing her librarian, Miss Cheryl Hensley, who's running this book giveaway.
I feel like I'm missing this big love for reading, but I'm still trying to hold on to that love.
Hensley's position was eliminated after the state of Texas took over the Houston Independent School District.
Being able to put the right book in the right kids at the right time, that's essential.
This school year, the Texas Education Agency disbanded the elected school board and appointed a new superintendent, Mike Miles, tasking him with standardized test scores, particularly in math and reading, especially after the pandemic.
Somehow we have to be able to measure a kid's ability to read.
Miles replaced the previous board with a 9-member board of managers. But the biggest change, choosing 28 schools, placing them under what Miles calls the new education system, or NES model. He decided those schools no longer needed librarians.
My mission in life, I'm a librarian. I'm making sure that these kids love it too. I want to make sure that they go find something they want to read and find something that they love to read.
So now knowing that they don't have a librarian.
That's heartbreaking. That's just, it's extremely heartbreaking.
Another change are the so-called spot observations. Officials and administrators monitor teachers' lessons to ensure they're following the district's course materials. What they see plays a key role in whether educators keep their job. Some teachers tell me they're already getting termination slips before the end of the year. Amid a teacher shortage, these changes are driving teachers like out of the classroom.
It's never been like this. It's never felt so much like you're being strangled.
Benson says when she pulled 2 students to the back of the class to help them individually, she was told she shouldn't be giving any students one-on-one instruction.
The kids get worksheets to do because if they're high, then they go and do this worksheet. If they're medium, they do this worksheet. If they're low, they do this worksheet. But in addition to that, they have PowerPoints that you've got to do the PowerPoints as they are. So I want to change it. Or there's words in there that the kids don't understand. I want to be able to add pictures or change the vocabulary a little bit. And all of that was discouraged. I want everybody to love learning for the sake of learning. And it has become, sadly, a space of we are learning so we can pass a standardized test.
Our Houston station KTRK found HISD had the highest rate of teachers leaving the region, with 600 who have left so far this year, twice as many as the roughly 300 HISD teachers who left during the same time frame last year. HISD admits 2/3 of teachers who left this year were from NES schools, but says the model raises expectations and is not for everyone, according to KTRK. And it's not just NES schools impacted. More than 55 HISD schools have actually chosen to opt in, with others cherry-picking NES policies. A-rated Barbara Bush Elementary adding a timed curriculum, providing teachers with a timer that gives students about 4 minutes until they are required to move on to the next session. This is Henley Jackson, a 5th grader with ADHD. She says it's overwhelming.
Once there's a little bit of time left, I start panicking because I feel like I'm not going to finish in time.
Henley's mom saying she and other parents have voiced their concerns to the district.
We feel like that is falling on deaf ears.
Hi, thank you so much. I sat down with Kristen Hull, Superintendent Miles's chief academic officer.
At the heart of what we're trying to do is improve what is happening in the classroom.
Hull says HISD also raised salaries for NES teachers and that their goal is simple: improve student achievement for failing or near failing schools.
You guys should be ashamed of yourself. You guys are not Houstonians. You guys are working for the system and the high ups.
But time and time again, frustrated parents and teachers have packed into board meetings.
The public cannot hear.
The morale just feels low for the people I've talked to. What is wrong with that picture?
That might be true for some. I can't speak to everybody, but that's just not been my experience in walking the classrooms. We're out in the classrooms all of the time. But my message is...
So you're saying you haven't heard of these teachers and parents?
We have, I'm sure. Yes, we hear things, but I think my message, if someone is experiencing something, is what we're trying to say and what we continue to say is the thing we are here to do is stay committed to ensuring your student is receiving the best instruction and the best education that we can provide them.
Morale can play a role in whether a state takeover works, says researcher Josh Bleberg.
It makes it a lot more difficult for them to do their job well.
Texas joins 24 other states that have taken over school districts as officials in recent years have increasingly responded to poor academics or fiscal management by usurping local control. But nationally, recent studies like Bleberg's in 2021 with Beth Schuler of the University of Virginia found no evidence to suggest takeovers boost academic achievement.
What we find is that test scores in math and English language arts were about the same before the takeover and after the takeover.
Several other studies have also come to similar conclusions.
The pushback from community members, from teachers, from parents, those are valued stakeholders in any successful school turnaround effort. If there isn't that trust, it's less likely there will be a positive effect.
When I asked whether HISD took these studies into consideration, Hull said different officials make different changes.
The thing that I spend time looking at is the research on what we know works for learning for our kids.
Some parents agree
they need the structure. If everything is so lenient and going, the kids are going to go throughout the year being lenient. They're not going to know structure.
Others say they feel trapped.
There's barriers to just up and leaving, not to mention people's social economic levels in life and where they live, let alone family obligations and just life in general. So,
so it's not easy to just leave out of the school district.
No, it's not.
These grievances leading to protests.
Hey, ho, ho, Miles got to go.
And to the largest teachers union in Houston to officially call for Superintendent Miles's removal after 98% of the Houston Federation of Teachers just ratified a resolution of no confidence.
Good morning.
Jackie Anderson, the president.
There's a very diverse culture here.
All of these blue dots right here are NES schools.
You cannot use a blanket, a cookie cutter model for every child in this district.
So what's the answer?
Restore a democratically elected board.
Okay, but there have been issues in the past. So what's the answer once you do that?
Funding. You know, we have a state with a $33 billion surplus. Not one dime went to public education.
This comes as HISD touts preliminary mid-year test scores are showing an overall improvement among D and F schools, but admits it could take years before the impact is apparent. Officials say their goal is to one day return HISD back to local control, but for now, the state plans to add as many as 40 more NES schools by next school year and expand to just over half the district's schools by 2025. Since state takeovers are happening more frequently, Bleberg says many other schools may be on the verge of big changes.
I'm speaking for teachers. I'm speaking for people who can't say something, that are afraid for retribution and losing their jobs. I can't stop, so I'm not going to stop.
And right there should tell you everything. Many ways that, think about that, a school, as someone that thinks that, hey, maybe we need to add timers, maybe we need to move librarians, maybe we need to do all these things because kids aren't learning, except for saying the simple fact of the matter is just that the reason why kids are not learning is because you have pretty much watered down education to practically nothing. At the same time, removing librarians, removing teachers being moved on because of scores, out-of-date testing procedures. I can keep going on. But the thing about it is, the only way we can actually fix education in our country is to do the one thing we should have done from Jump Street. Give our Department of Education the same funding we give our military. That way we have smarter people and less wars. But the last thing that I got, guys, again, we shouldn't be surprised about this because unless you've been under a rock, we've all seen the video of Diddy, assaulting Cassidy. And then, later on, we also see that Diddy decided to release a video because, unfortunately, he cannot be held accountable for this since the video is 8 years old and outside statute of limitations.
Reporter of ESPN's Anscape and author of It Was All a Dream, Biggie and the World That Made Him, Justin Tinsley, along with ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more on this. Justin, what's your reaction to Diddy's apology video, and what are you hearing from people in the hip-hop world?
Well, you heard the statement from Cassie's legal team. They used the word disingenuous, and that is the right word, but somehow it doesn't feel nearly enough. When you track the timeline in December, a month after Cassie filed her lawsuit, he said he denied all allegations. Enough is enough. He didn't do any of this. And now this apology comes out after this video. And this video it's incited anger. It's incited conversation around the ecosystem of abusers and enablers and people who benefited from Puffy's wealth and his power at this point in time. But most importantly, and it should not take a video or images to prove that domestic violence actually happened. But this is undeniable now. It's confirmation that many people feel that everything that Cassie said in her lawsuit actually happens, and there's no way to deny it now. So that's what a lot of conversations are centering around at the moment.
Now, Brian, Diddy settled this lawsuit with Cassie just a day after it was announced. And as you said in that piece, the LA District Attorney can't prosecute because of the statute of limitations. So now what?
Well, short of California going back and changing its statute of limitation laws, there's nothing going to happen from a state level. However, from a federal level, we know there is an investigation through the Southern District of New York, and these allegations and this video could be used as what we call a prior bad act witness or evidence to substantiate that Sean Combs either has a common scheme or plan or some sort of RICO allegations or human trafficking where there are other signs of force being used and then silencing that force as per Cassie's lawsuit where she says that Sean Combs paid $50,000 for this video to never see the light of day. So it can be used indirectly, but not necessarily directly for other charges.
Now, Justin, Diddy is a mogul in the music industry. Just last year, he won the Global Icon Award at the VMAs. So what does this mean for his career now?
You know, that's a very interesting question. And I think the most important thing in terms of this conversation right now, and it was mentioned earlier, in that apology, he never once mentioned Cassie's name or even alluded to her in the fact that I'm sorry that you have to relive this trauma again. These are my actions towards you, and I'm sorry. And with Puffy's image, which is pretty bad right now, from the moment he burst onto the national scene in the early 90s, producing for acts like Jodeci and Mary J. Blige, his entire image is I'm outside, I'm the party guy. Fame is something that I love. And now it's, you know, he has to live life outside of that bubble, potentially for the rest of his life. And I'm not saying that he won't have access to his wealth or even, you know, the luxurious trips that he can take. But this is a world where now he is radioactive. And in the eyes of countless people, he's a horrific person. So it'll be interesting to see how Puffy adjusts to that new reality for him that is really all his own doing.
Brian, to what degree could this video be used in the separate civil lawsuits that Diddy's facing and also in the federal human trafficking investigation?
So it could be used, Diane, for potential impeachment. We've already seen that Sean Combs has set out and said that we denied all these allegations a month after Cassie's lawsuit. But it can also be used to demonstrate his understanding of the use of force against women, and that not necessarily that he's committed this crime in the past and will do so in the future, but through other processes of showing criminal intent or actions.
Point out, Diddy has denied those human trafficking.
So long story short, Diddy's done, as he should be. But what's so crazy about that is that not only is he done, but at the same time, the fact that he can't be prosecuted because there is a statute of limitations on crimes that can be prosecuted. Now, again, I'm not going to show the whole video here. The video is practically everywhere you can find it. But yeah, Diddy's done. At the same time, what does that say about domestic violence abusers? That, hey, as long as you got time on your side, you can beat a case as long as it can't be brought up. And that's up is what that is, ladies and gentlemen, especially the simple fact of the matter that, yeah, Diddy should be facing a trial for this. Now, granted, he is still under investigation for various other things, but yeah, his time in the spotlight is done. But again, this actually should be something that Congress can actually look into about removing the statute of limitations on domestic violence. Because again, abusers should be held accountable and time should not be a barrier for that. But we'll see what happens. Because again, that even though he cannot be prosecuted for the domestic violence against Cassie, against Cassidy. But Cassidy is what I meant to say. My apologies. But again, that evidence could be used to actually establish his character per se in the ongoing lawsuits. But that's pretty much going to do it, guys. We're going to move on to our feel good segment because usually how the fact we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes we use your faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow is our pre-Friday, which is Thursday. We will leave you guys out some good vibrations and a little bit of history for a man that that initially was supposed to be America's first black astronaut has finally got to take his trip in space.
9, a flight for the history books.
Today, at 90 years old, retired Air Force Captain Ed Dwight realized his dream. A dream initially deferred after he was selected by President John F. Kennedy back in 1961 to be the nation's first black astronaut.
If politics had changed on in space in some kind of capacity, as I look at it philosophically, my role in the whole process was to open up a conversation about blacks in space. And I was very, very proud of it.
Prouder still this morning as he made history. No longer about breaking racial barriers. Today was about breaking the sound barrier, blasting off in West Texas on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket, along with 5 other passengers.
The vehicle continues to climb.
After waiting 63 years, just imagine his delight. 3 minutes, 14 seconds into flight, the rocket reaching its highest altitude at just over 300,000 feet. Captain Dwight finally making it to space, among the newly minted astronauts on board experiencing zero gravity. Astronaut Ed Dwight emerging back on Earth, still floating nonetheless.
Long time coming.
His wife, Barbara, right there to greet him with a big hug for her husband, now the oldest American to ever go to space.
Overwhelmed, everything you can think of. I thought I really didn't need this in my life, but now I need it in my life. This is fabulous.
And again, I thought that was pretty cool because initially, under President John F. Kennedy, he would have actually been America's first black astronaut in space at the time. But at least he did get to fulfill his dream. But doggone it, Blue Origin, y'all guys really got to fix the design of your rockets. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. Of course, you can find me, Black_Spartan615, pretty much everywhere on the socials. Definitely like, share, follow. I cover a lot of things, especially not just news, but video games, things of that nature. You can also catch me on Blurred's Eye View every Tuesday and every Thursday. Again, with my shows, How the Frack We Got Here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and Give It Podcast every Friday at 8-ish p.m. Whenever we start. But definitely follow us, guys. The like, share, and follow. Again, the link at the bottom, I'll make that just a bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, taking my link tree, that's YouTube and Facebook groups for all my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, get bit off of this podcast. Like, share, follow. It costs nothing to do that, guys, and literally less than 30 seconds to do all those things. But simply put, we cannot do this without you. So hopefully you'll do just that. Also, guys, please check out blurstation.com. It is the vehicle that we always said that we should have our own place. That'll basically serve as our Netflix. You can find movies, television shows, art, graphics, you name it. We are basically trying to build this into the vehicle we've always wanted. We thought Tubi was it, but Tubi was not it. Because the simple fact of the matter is, it was the same person, or that same person that owned Fox and made his money off black creators. But yet, Blur Station is the place you want to be. If you do feel like joining, guys, please hit the Join Now button, select the Blurred's Eye View Offending membership, and please select my name, Black_Spartan. I would certainly appreciate that. At the same time, guys, it's $10.99 a month to watch Blur Station. $10.99 a month. You cannot beat that with a stick. At the same time, guys, again, if you are a content creator and do want your content to be shown on Blur Station, you first have to join being a member. And once you have joined, then you guys can go from there as far as reaching out to the creators of Blur Station. And if so, your content can be shown there. Of course, you keep ownership of your content. The only thing that they do ask is for a piece of the distribution. And if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, that's not a half bad deal. At the same time, guys, after paying $10.99 a month for 36 months, you do get the option of owning a piece of Blur Station. It's way easier than owning a piece of Apple TV, Prime, of Hulu, Netflix. It's a whole lot easier. But again, Blur Station is the place you want to be, as we have announced that we do have partnerships with Michael Jai White, with Orlando Jones, and many others that are coming. So trust me, you definitely want to get on this train. Definitely check out blurstation.com. As we wrap this up, guys, again, I cannot stress this enough about the presidential debates coming up. I cannot stress this enough about voting. Again, they are trying to move the goalposts. They are trying to get you to do everything but vote. And I know this is going to sound corny, but again, if voting wasn't important, why are they doing everything they can to make sure that you don't? Because every vote matters. At the same time, get to know the candidates, get to know the people that are going to basically be representing you, not just on the national level, but on the local level. Because again, if you're like me in Tennessee, we have a bunch of idiots outside of a handful of good people that are in our legislature that are literally running our state, our city, our side of the U.S. into the ground. Again, at the same time, if you believe that you can be a great public servant, there's plenty of websites out there that can help you learn how to run for office. Again, be active, be informed, don't sit on the sidelines, because we don't want another repeat of another Trump administration, because we all saw how that went. That being said, guys, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes with it. We do a lot better when we're progressive. We move forward. We try to definitely correct the mistakes of the past by making decisions now that should have been done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go about our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. From Obi and myself, guys, thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll all get through this. Peace.